Turnkey with Morgan Francis, sponsored by Integrity Roofing.
Welcome into Turnkey on Queen City News Plus, your go-to show for everything real estate in the Carolinas. We talk about the latest market trends, do's and don'ts of the industry, and provide expert advice on navigating this dynamic landscape that we call home. I'm your host, Morgan Francis, and typically on Turnkey, we talk a lot about the residential side of things, but in Charlotte, there's a huge market for commercial properties, and I want to bring in the expert on commercial properties, Paul Piacentino. He is with Costello Real Estate and Investment. Paul, appreciate you coming on the show. We already kind of sort of know each other.
Yeah.
We met years ago, right? When you were with Keller Williams.
Yeah, I want to say it was 4 or 5 years ago at least now.
Yep. I had just gotten my license and was trying to just kind of see where I wanted to hang my license. You have to hang your license with a firm.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of gave me that look like, I feel like I know you. And then you said, do you work for the news?
Yep.
Yep.
You got a
Caught.
recognizable face.
Yeah.
So it's funny you were trying to fly under the radar too.
I was a little bit, but it worked out because
Yes.
now we get to have you on Turnkey.
Yes.
And you used to do residential primarily, correct?
Yep.
And now you've switched over to commercial.
Yep.
Why is that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, so my career before real estate was actually in commercial insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it for 10 years. So it was something I was in the commercial space very interested in, got into residential real estate, did that for a while, really felt like I got my bearings. And then the just part of dealing with the type of clients you deal with commercial. So there's business owners and investors, and you're dealing with like more macro type things. So it really got interesting to me. And it's funny you bring up us meeting because a lot of it's relationship based.
Mm-hmm.
That's just real estate in general. So it was really cool just to see how this has kind of morphed, and it just became something where I got really more interested in that than the residential side.
Do you feel like the residential side is more emotional and then that the commercial side maybe lacks that, is more, business focused and keeping the numbers in mind? Or do you feel like the emotions are still there on the commercial side?
I think for the most part, it is more emotional on the residential and analytical, we'll say, on the commercial.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, emotions do come into it with commercial, right? So with commercial, you're dealing with business owners and investors. So it really comes down to how do the numbers work? Is this a good deal? Or with residential, they always say it's the 5 Ds. It's diapers, diamonds, diplomas, death, and divorce.
Okay.
So it's a life-changing thing, right? Where with commercial, it's like, hey, if I've got a business, do I want to open another location?
Mm-hmm.
Does this location make sense? It's very, like I said, very analytical, but people do get emotional about it. I've been in deals where, one side gets very strong about something and the other side doesn't want to budge. So.
Yeah, I would think too, especially with commercial, you can get some big egos involved, and sometimes it just doesn't matter. They want what they want.
Exactly.
Big umbrella when it comes to commercials. We have, office sector, industrial and retail, multifamily. And I would think that a lot of investors kind of would want to stay in a certain swim lane. And am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah. So it depends if they're a new investor or a savvy investor that's been around a long time. And new investors want to do everything. And we always prompt them, say, hey, you want to focus on one thing because you want to get really good at it. Because, there's not as many properties out there for that one sector, but you need to know, is this a good deal? Do the numbers make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And really dive fully into it. Or if you try to do everything, these investors that have been doing this a long time or business owners are going to swoop in and take the deal before you even get a chance to analyze it. So
so how do you analyze a commercial property? What do you look for? What are kind of the main points that investors want to see to be able to move on something?
Yeah, so it all depends on the type of investor you are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an investor, say you've been around a long time, you're like, listen, I just want to park my cash. I just want a good investment. You're going to look at, is this in a good area already? How are my tenants? Are they Class A? Like, do I have a Publix here? Do I have a Starbucks, right? Because they're not going to default on a lease.
Mm-hmm.
Your return might not be the highest, but it's guaranteed. And then you have other investors that look at properties as add value properties. So they go in, they go, okay, I'm looking at this. Perfect example is Raleigh CLT, right? That used to be just like a warehousing operation.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at it and go, well, wait, we can do something different with that. So that investor that went in there did an add value, and now you see how big it is and what's going on with it. So it just, depends. Is it the highest and best use for the property? So I'm working with a client right now that we're rezoning something from residential to commercial. Just doing that alone is going to double the value.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because of what you can do with it.
Okay.
So those are some of the things, but the biggest thing with commercial is how much money does it make, right? How much money do I need to put into
What's
it?
the calculation you do for that?
Yeah, usually it's cap rate. So
Okay.
it's, if you bought it all in cash,
Mhm.
what's the percentage you're getting back? And it's different for each
That's
asset
where I was going to
class.
ask you
Yeah.
because on the housing side,
Hmm.
you usually want right around what 8% if you're an investor that is renting out your home. So what would that be on the commercial side?
Yeah, it all depends. Like I said, so you're going to get higher cap rates as the further you go away from the city because it's less stable, essentially. So we'll use Lincolnton, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You're out in Lincolnton, your cap rates will be higher, but the stability of it will be lower. So you might get a 10% cap rate, which is 10% return on your money, right? Which is pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
compared to other things you can do. Whereas you get closer to the city, that same asset might be 5% because it's like, all right, well, you're gonna if that tenant leaves, you're gonna be able to get someone in there sooner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less risk. So
Mm-hmm.
cap rate is how much money you're gonna make, but also it shows you how much risk you have with it.
Well, and I would think, I mean, do they look at appreciation of these properties? I would think they would appreciate it at a higher percentage than housing, or am I incorrect in that?
It depends,
Okay.
right? So take
Such a
office sector
broad
for a little bit.
range.
Yeah. So COVID happens, right? Office
Right.
sector took a dive,
Mm-hmm.
because of the economic environment. So it depends on when you're looking at what's the city's plan, what are they trying to do for this area. Those factors go into appreciation. Some stuff appreciates really fast, especially if you can rezone it and use it for what it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you're seeing industrial properties and mixed use really see an appreciation because we're in a space in Charlotte where we have 85, we have 77. So those two things, like industrials, like
Mm-hmm.
logistics and things like that, and flex space, because you can put lots of different things in there. It's not bound really to like it's just an office.
Well, in industrial, there's not much overhead. I mean, it's one big giant space,
Mhm.
and to me, I would think that investor that would be more attractive because you don't have to do as much with it. Same with some of those storage places. People put their stuff in their storage unit and then it just sits. The wear and tear is maybe in the hallways and the elevator.
Yep.
You don't have to maintain 200 bathrooms like an apartment complex, like a multifamily. Uh, are they marketed differently? Homes go on the multiple listing service, and then Zillow, Redfin, they grab those listings and share them out on their platforms. Are commercial properties marketed differently?
Yeah, a lot different actually. So most people, if you as just a regular person want to go check, you can go on Zillow, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see everything on the market.
Mm-hmm.
With commercial, you don't see 90% of the stuff on the market unless you're talking to a broker.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is because a lot of deals are done off market. So they're within brokers. So a bigger firm might never, like if you had your property and you're like, hey, I'm going to go to this huge firm that's got 500 agents in it, it might never leave that broker's firm because they've already got somebody, right? But then there's also places like Crexy, CoStar, and LoopNet, which is the MLS for commercial, is what it is. The biggest one right now is CoStar. That is only accessible for brokers. And unless you pay a lot of money.
Another fee. They love to nickel and dime
They
you in the
do.
real estate
They do.
industry.
Yeah. And so you're seeing services like Crexy come out where they're really trying to be like a Zillow to everybody.
Okay.
But it's slowly catching on, but it's not fully because a lot of brokers they're gatekeeping that information because there's a lot to it. It's a lot harder to buy a commercial property than it is a residential property. And that's one thing with the commercial brokers. We're more consultants than we are just your broker. Hey, we didn't just open the door. We're going to teach you these numbers work. Let's do the numbers together. Is this a good investment? Is it not? Does it make sense for your business?
Getting a loan. The loan is different.
Loans are a lot different. And that's the thing is when you go to get a loan, there's a lot of different ways you can do. You can go conventional, go to a bank, right? They're going to ask for a lot. It's not just based on your credit score.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking at the leases on the building, right? These make sense?
What's guaranteed? Yeah.
Exactly.
They got to protect their investment.
Exactly. There's small business association loans. There's hard money loans. So like if I have a ton of money.
The scariest one.
Yeah, right? And you want to buy the property, you can come to me. There's less red tape.
Mm-hmm.
There's generally a higher interest rate too. Something that's really popular right now is seller financing. So you usually see that a lot for someone that's owned the property for 20, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
They have it paid off and they want mailbox money, right? And the other benefit of it is they kind of not get around capital gains, but they pay less capital gains because they spread it out over time. So those generally are very popular if someone's owned it for a long time. But to your point, it's harder to get a commercial loan. You're generally putting 25, 35% down, and the terms are a lot less. You're not getting a 30-year loan. you're 5, 7, maybe 10. And to your point, it's based on the leases. So if I got leases that are expiring in 5 years, the bank's probably not going to give me a 10-year loan.
Okay.
They'll say, hey, it's 5 years amortized over, and then you have a balloon payment after that. What most people do is they re-up the leases and then they get a new loan. That's what it is.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, I want to talk more about the Charlotte specifically and the state of real estate in terms of commercial real estate in the Charlotte area. We do have to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we are going to dive into the state of commercial real estate in Charlotte. More Turnkey after this. Welcome back to Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. We've been talking with Paul Piacentino, who does commercial real estate here in the Charlotte area. Just Charlotte, or how far do you go out?
So we go pretty far.
Okay.
We go most of North Carolina and most of South Carolina right now. Yeah.
That's what I figured. Most have their license in both states. I want to read to you some stats because we're talking about the Charlotte market. CNBC named North Carolina as the top state for business in 2025. Obviously, Raleigh and Charlotte are the two main cities. NC averaged more than 14,000 monthly business applications, up from 8,600. That was the average, a monthly average in 2019. So with those stats in mind, what does that mean for the state of commercial real estate, not only in North Carolina, but Charlotte specifically?
Yeah, it means it's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a lot of growth. We thought when COVID hit, like, oh my God.
End of the world.
End of the world. What's happening?
Yeah, right.
It paused for a little bit. Listen, there is certain sectors that got hit really hard. Office got hit really hard.
Right.
You're actually seeing them rebound a lot right now. We've gotten over the whole work from home thing. I think a lot of companies looked at that and was like, all right, maybe full work from home isn't the best. Let's bring back some stuff. And
I think even they're getting rid of the hybrid schedule. I'm hearing that more companies are saying, hey, we want 5 days a week. So
yeah, I've actually heard
you have to fill those buildings.
Yeah, I've heard some companies say, hey, listen, if you're not willing to come back, sorry, we don't have a job for you.
Yeah.
Which is scary, but it's the way of the world.
Right. So going back to the state of commercial real estate in Charlotte, where is I don't know if you can answer this or not, but where is the best investment? Is it office space? Is it multifamily? Is it industrial and retail? Or does that just kind of depend on what you invest in as an investor for commercial?
Partially that of like what right? That's with anything, whether it's stocks or real estate. What do you know the best? You should invest that because you have to really look at not just demographics, but also like the indicators, like what's going on here. Does this make sense? You can make money in anything. But what I would say is if someone's really looking for like a hot asset class right now, industrial and flex space is the two. And we mentioned this before, but like 85, right? And 77.
Right.
We also have the Charlotte International Airport. We're a hub for a lot of stuff. We're the second largest banking city. There's a lot of stuff happening here. We have 157 people per day coming to this region. That's a lot of people. Like 2 years ago, it was 110. So when you think about that, people move here, right? Good for business, right? Companies want to come here. We have, I don't even know how many Fortune 500 companies, but we have a lot of headquarters here. And you're seeing,
they're all pretty much in South End, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Everyone's in South End.
Yeah, which is a huge fintech hub, right? Like, so you've got these, early 20s people that are really into the fintech. They don't need cars. They can take the light rail to places. They have a stat that says most people stay within 5 miles of their home. So when they built the Lowe's Tower, why'd they build that? Well, it's up in Mooresville.
They can walk to work.
Exactly. So why wouldn't they do that? They're not going to drive to Mooresville. I don't even like to drive to Mooresville. No offense to Mooresville.
It's not Mooresville. It's 77.
Yeah, that's
set the record straight on that
true.
one.
Yeah. So, but overall, we're in a great spot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on with office we talked about and industrial and flex. Multifamily, you keep seeing buildings going up. The thing that people need to remember is there's a lot smarter people out there than you and I. And
always.
And these things have been in the works for years. Like, so when you see a building go up, this wasn't yesterday they thought of this.
I mean, it takes 2+ years to build an apartment complex. So when you're seeing those come to fruition, that's years in the making. And when you think about the time that the investors made that decision, they're hoping that decision is still the right one years later, and that we're not having kind of an oversaturation in our market when it comes to multifamily specifically.
Yeah. With any of it though, like to your point, it's they're making it a few years prior.
They're betting on futures.
They're betting on futures. So hopefully it goes well. You know, they look at certain things and, some deals don't work out, That's why developers get better at for a lot of different reasons, but sometimes they make a lot of money, sometimes they lose a lot of money,
Mhm.
you know?
I want to read you a stat that I found, and I'd love for you to put it into perspective. So, the national office vacancy rate was 18.6 in September. Charlotte's rate is 19.3%, so a little higher than the national average. Uh, where is it typically? I mean, when people hear that almost 20% vacancy rate, that sounds like a lot,
Hmm.
but is it?
It's not too high. I mean, it's a little bit higher than we want.
Okay.
Part of that is, like we had mentioned, about the work from home stuff, but a
Mhm.
lot of that's coming back. You're seeing conversions happen now
Mhm.
with this space. So it is a little bit higher, but, in commercial, you get creative. So there's things that, they're doing. And that's also based on how much square footage is available. So when the square footage goes down, that's actually available, that vacancy rate will go down drastically.
Mhm.
So.
What are some of the more interesting projects that you're seeing right now in the Charlotte area?
Yeah, I think a couple that come to my mind, we had talked about this a little bit off camera, but was the College Street, 200 College Street. They're
Mhm.
converting that, some of that into multifamily and retail, which is really cool.
Mhm.
That's right in Uptown. I think we need more of that. That's going to cost a lot of money. They traded for about $22 million less than it originally sold for.
Mhm.
People hear that, they're like, oh my God, what's happening? But a lot of these conversions and things are going to cost a lot of money.
Mhm.
Think about redoing your house. Commercial is multi-million dollars to do this stuff.
Right. This is a building we're talking about, by the way,
Yeah.
200 North College. So you mentioned what's interesting about this. So originally sold 2018,
Mm-hmm.
54.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
and then most recently sold for 32.8 million.
Yeah.
So that's a big dip.
Yep.
But I would think that they're going to spend more than 20 million converting this thing, right?
Oh, easily. I mean, just to put enough bathrooms in there, right? So
Right?
right now,
Right.
say on per floor they have 3 bathrooms. I don't know exactly, but
Mhm.
when you convert it to residential, you need a bathroom in every unit. So now you have to redo all the plumbing. When this building was built, codes were completely different. The minute you start to open up walls, codes is like, hey, we got to do it this way now.
Mhm.
So your electrical plumbing alone is going to be millions of dollars just to convert it. That's why this traded for $22 million less, because it wasn't the highest and best use at that point. So now when this gets converted, you're going to see that value skyrocket.
So do you think we're going to see more of this, or do you think there's still going to be people who just think that it's just not worth it? Because I mean, it takes a lot of money, as you mentioned, a lot of effort.
Yeah. I think it depends on the city's plan. What's going on, where they see stuff going, and the investors. This is kind of a, guessing game right now with this. Like, they think this is going to work, and I totally think it will. The question is the proof's in the pudding, right?
Mhm.
So once this is done, you'll start to see, okay, did this work? And then you'll start to see more developers dive in and go, okay, we can do this. You might even see the people that currently own it decide, hey, let's reinvest some money to do this stuff. But there's other places like the Iron District. We've talked about Charlotte Pipe and Foundry location.
Mhm.
That's really cool. That's going to cost millions of dollars, but they're making into that in like its own little neighborhood.
Mhm.
Even in South Park, we'll see what happens. But the pavilion over there, they just put in a rezoning request. So that's a 1-story restaurant retail. They're trying to make that into a 5-story residential and like shopping and restaurants and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So you're seeing a lot of more density in places.
I mean, there's a finite amount of land, right?
Yeah.
You can't go out when it starts to fill up. I think the Iron District will be the interesting one because, well, you do have to demolish and clean up everything that's there,
Yep.
right? But it's a big piece of land,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of space to develop that and a lot of buildings. That the return on investment will be fine there.
Yeah.
But with those single buildings conversion, that's the one that's intriguing. I'm curious to see if we'll see more of that.
Yeah, and I think time will tell,
Yeah.
right, with anything. To your point about the Iron District, there's already a proven concept, Camp North End.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at Camp North End, it's working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And they're even talking about trying to get the light rail to go through there. So as more of this stuff happens, and to your point is, you can only go so far out because of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to start going up, you know? So.
All right, we got to take one more quick commercial break. When we come back, more Turnkey after this. Welcome back to Turnkey. We have been talking the differences between residential and commercial real estate in North Carolina and the Charlotte area with Paul Piacentino. Paul, for anyone out there who is watching, who's thinking that they might be interested in getting into the commercial side, investing in real estate, what do they need to know?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. It's a lot different than residential. So if you're a first-time investor in general, or you're coming from the residential side, the thing to know is there's some cost into it. It's unfortunately that is one of the hurdles, right, to get into it. So just alone, your attorney fees are going to be a lot more. You could not close on a deal, and you still might owe a few $1,000s to your attorney.
Okay.
And the big difference is with residential, it's usually a flat fee. With commercial, it's per hour. So if you send an email to the attorney, they're going to charge you for that 15 minutes.
Right,
you know?
right. Of course.
Exactly.
Right?
Everybody's got to get paid in it. So
Which on the residential side, for anyone who's bought a home, it's on your final closing disclosure, and there's that fee. Yep. It's usually not terribly high.
Yeah. If you spend $1,500, I'd be surprised.
Right. Okay, continue.
Yeah. And then the thing I would say is big. If you know anything about residential, there's due diligence periods. North Carolina is kind of unique for that. We have that in commercial, but we call them inspection periods, and they're generally a lot longer. There's a lot that you do within that time frame, and most of the time you're not putting money down during that period. So in North Carolina for residential, you're putting could be 0.5% of the purchase price.
Because you're taking the house off the market, and they want to know that you got skin in the game.
Exactly.
Different on the commercial side?
Totally different. You don't generally put any money down because you're going to have cost into it anyways. So sellers look at it and go, well, you have to pay for all these things anyways, inspections, attorneys. So you're going to have that. Now you do have earnest money that goes hard at a certain point. We say usually right after your inspection period's done. That'll be a substantial amount, but then you usually close like a couple weeks later.
Okay.
Inspections are different in regards to just cost. Again,
everything's I would think the inspection would be just different in general in terms of like what the inspector is testing, right?
Yes. Yeah. So there's environmental is a huge thing. So we call it phase 1. So you'll ask the property owner, hey, do you have a phase 1? That'll tell you if they've done an environmental study. And if they have, it's big on land because if it's contaminated.
Right. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
One of my best friends is a geologist and works on sites that have contaminated properties. And I learned so much from her about like, you can't just scoop it up and move on. Sometimes you have to cap it. Sometimes you have to wait years before developing the property. So there's a lot that gets into that too.
Yeah.
So we have brownfield sites in North Carolina.
We do.
We don't have a lot of time to talk about it. But that's a whole nother thing.
Its own whole segment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just something. That's another thing that as you're getting into it, just understanding there's more cost to it, and understanding of like what you want to focus on is the biggest things. But I always tell people talk to a broker that does this. They can sit you down and kind of go through it and get you prepped for it.
Right. And see if it's even something you want to dive into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for coming on Turnkey. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Everyone else out there, I hope you learned something from today's episode. And thank you so much for watching Turnkey. We'll see you next time.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.